Welcome to another video of Ekcel Academy. I am Vishwas Krishna. In this video, we'll be looking at logical reasoning of CSEET and more specifically the topics listed on the board. So the topics being non-verbal reasoning, syllogism, decision making, and also blood relations. I thought I will cover a bit of non-verbal reasoning as well. Usually I don't touch upon non-verbal reasoning for only one reason, that is it's quite easy. We will see why now in a minute. But apart from that, syllogism is an interesting topic wherein few statements will be given, then there will be few conclusions as well, and then we will have to answer accordingly, looking at both the statements as well as conclusions. And then we have decision making, wherein the rules will be given for that particular problem, and based on those rules, we'll have to come to certain conclusions. That is decision making, and blood relations is something which we have already covered in the past. So it's all about relations between the parties, and we'll have to identify what is the relationship between the parties in question. So now let us do one thing. Let us start with the non-verbal reasoning, the most easiest part out of the topics which we will be covering today. Okay, we have the first question here. The first question says, the image becomes simpler, that is the rule which they have mentioned here, as the series proceeds. That means, so this is the series 1, 2, then 3 and 4. We have 4 series here, but what we have to do here is we'll have to detect this rule as to in which of these 4 series the above rule is applicable. So that is exactly what we are going to do now. In the first option, or rather in the first series, we have this shape, and after that we have a triangle, but after triangle we have something else of this sort. That means the series is not becoming simpler, but instead it is changing its form, but definitely not getting any simple. So therefore obviously the first option, or rather option A, is not fitting inside this rule. Now let us look at the second option. Even in case of second option, if you look at the first and second images, that is, this is the first one and this is the second one, do you notice any change there? Is it getting simpler? Obviously not. So it remains the same. In fact, there is one addition as well in the second image. So therefore this also is not fitting this particular rule of series becoming simpler as it proceeds. Now if we look at the third option here, we start with this particular diagram. Then see, if I have to draw that roughly, so it is somewhat like this. Then there is some semicircle there on the left hand side. Now this is the first image in that series. In the second image, this semicircle is dropped, so we only have a square, and within that square we have into mark. That is fine. Now it has become slightly simpler. And in the third image we have just a square and just one oblique here, so it is much more simpler in the third image. And finally in the fourth image it is just a square. So now obviously this particular series, that is series number 3, is fitting this rule, and hence we can straight away select this option. As I said, non-verbal reasoning is generally easy. All that you need to do is check what is given in the question. In this case it is all about rule detection. There is some rule, we will have to detect in which of these options this particular rule is followed. And now that we have detected, we are done with the question. Let's move on to the second one. Once again we have rule detection here. A single unbroken line can trace any figure in the series without retracting. This is interesting. See, in this case what is happening is we should not be lifting our pen. Without lifting we should be able to retract. Obviously it is not possible in option A. Let's consider this is option A. So now we don't even have to check the remaining options. We can easily rule out this particular option. Now let us come to the second one. In case of second one, can we do that? Again the same problem persists there also. So we cannot do anything about this series as well, because if you look at the first image itself, you cannot draw that without lifting your pen. So obviously this also doesn't qualify. So done with the second option as well. So in the third option, we start with a star. So that is obviously possible to draw without lifting the finger. So second option, or rather second diagram in the series is a square with an oblique. That can also be done, because all you have to do is just this. So that is something which we can do without lifting the finger. So these two are fine with the rule. And the third option, or rather the third diagram in the third option, is about a circle and then a circle. Can we draw this without lifting the finger? Let's see. Once I draw this circle, I will draw a circle once, then again I can draw one more circle inside there. Of course, it's not round in shape, but pardon me for my amateur drawing skills. But apart from that, it is obviously possible to draw this image without retracing the step. So obviously option 3 is fulfilling the rule, so we need not even look at option 4. So option 3 is the right answer here. Now let us read the rule first, then we'll proceed towards the options. As the square decreases in size, its parts increase in number. Okay, that is interesting. The square, in this question every image is a square. The size of the square is decreasing, but the parts inside the squares are increasing. So which of these diagram actually fits that particular rule? So first option, if you look at this, first square is fine. Second square is also fine because the size is decreasing, the parts are increasing. But in the third diagram, the parts are decreasing but not increasing. So therefore, first option is ruled out. Now let us come to the second option. In this case also, if you look at the first two diagrams only, we can make out that this is also not following because there is no increase in the number of parts. Okay, from diagram 1 to diagram 2 in option 2. So this is also ruled out. Whereas in case of option 3, let us see if that is happening. So we have only one part here, we have 4 parts here, then we have 6 parts here, then we have 8 parts here. Right. So here 1, then 4, then 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, 8 parts, and then actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. So now you tell me which of these options are right. Obviously option C or option 3. Why? Because in the first diagram of option C, we had only 2 parts, 1 and 2. In the second diagram, we had 4 parts. In the third, we had 6, and last we had 8. Whereas in the option D, that is the last option, it is not the case. It increased up to option, or rather the third diagram, but in the fourth diagram, it again decreased. So therefore, option D can be ruled out. The correct answer is option C. Now we have moved on to syllogism part of the video. We have 3 statements here. All heroes are villains, all villains are zeros, and some heroes are jokers, they say. Now in case of syllogism, even before we proceed towards conclusion, there is something which you need to do. What is it you are supposed to do? You will have to pictorially represent this diagram, or rather this statement, and it will be easy for you to make the conclusions then. Once again, whatever statements are given, try to pictorially represent them. That way, it will be easy for us to check if the conclusion is correct or not. So let me try to draw a diagram for the 3 statements given in the question. All heroes are villains. What I will do is I'll start with the circle. So now this is the circle of heroes. Okay. So now in this circle, all the heroes are there, but they say all the heroes are villains. That means they're part of a bigger circle called the villains. Okay. So now all heroes are now part of villains. Then they also say all villains are zeros. Okay. So then villains are now part of a bigger circle called the zeros. Okay. That is also fine. So this will be the circle of zeros. Once again, all the heroes are villains. All the villains are zeros. So we have fulfilled the first and second statement. We have pictorially represented those two. Now when it comes to the third statement, they say some heroes are jokers. Now where is the hero circle? It is the innermost circle. So now we'll have to write joker outside of this, but there should be something common between heroes and jokers. So what I will do is I will draw jokers here so that it is interacting or intersecting with heroes. So let this be joke. Now let us look at the conclusion. Until now, we need not even worry about the conclusions. Now that we have drawn or pictorially represented this, we can easily proceed towards the conclusion. So now what does the conclusion say? Some jokers are heroes, they say. Some jokers are heroes. Of course, yes, there is some intersection, right? So obviously, this is being followed. Some villains are jokers. There is also some intersection between villains and jokers. So this statement is also true. Then some zeros are villains. Some zeros are villains. Obviously, yes, not all zeros are villains, but some zeros are villains, because villains is basically part of zeros only. Because if you look at the statement number 2, it's very evident that all villains are zeros. If all villains are zeros, some zeros will be villains, because villains is anyway part of zeros. So this statement is also valid. So therefore, in this case, all the three statements are true, or statement 1, or rather conclusion 1, conclusion 2 and conclusion 3 follows. We have similar problem here. Some parrots are owls, all owls are pigeons, all pigeons are snakes. See, one trick with syllogism is, whenever you have statements wherein say we have words all or none, better to draw the diagrams for such statements first. So now let me start with owls. So let's say this is the owl here. Okay. All the owls are pigeons. So this will be pigeons. And all the pigeons are snakes. Okay. Now, some parrots are owls, they say. Okay. Now parrots, okay, we'll do one thing, we'll draw it here. So let me call this parrots. Some parrots are owls, that means there is some kind of intersection here. So now let us look at the conclusions. The first conclusion says some parrots are pigeons. All you have to do is check if there is any common element between pigeons and parrots. Obviously, there is some common element here between parrots and pigeons. So this statement follows. Some pigeons are parrots. Some pigeons, same thing. Some parrots are pigeons, some pigeons are parrots. Both are one and the same. So obviously, if the statement 1 is true, statement 2 is also true. Now, when it comes to last statement, they say all the owls are snakes. This is very interesting, because all the owls are pigeons. Okay. Then all the pigeons are snakes. If all of O is P and if all of P is S, then all of O is also S. So therefore, this statement also is true. That is, all owls are snakes. Moving on. Okay, we have 3 statements. All ducks are rats. Some rats are hats. All hats are leaves. Okay, fine. Let's see. All ducks are rats. Let's do that first. All ducks are rats. Okay, so we have ducks here, which are all rats. That is one statement. Then all hats are leaves. That means this is something which is slightly different here. It's a different circle. It has got nothing to do with rats or ducks. But let us look at the third statement as well. All rats, sorry, the second statement, some rats are hats. Some rats are hats, they say. So what I will do is, I will include hats here. Okay. So this is my hat. So there is some common element between rats and hats. So therefore they have used the word some. Okay. Now the last statement says all hats are leaves. That means hats should be part of a bigger circle called leaves. So let me draw one more circle here and let me call it leaves. Now, if you look at both the circles, we have fulfilled all the 3 statements. We have pictorially represented them. Now what is left is of course the conclusion. We'll have to check if the conclusions are perfect. Some leaves are ducks. Some leaves are ducks. Is there any common element between leaves and ducks here? Obviously no. There is no common element between leaves and ducks. So therefore statement 1 is not following. So ignore that. Then some hats are ducks, they say. Some hats are ducks. Is there any common element between hats and ducks? Again, there is no common element between those two. So that is also ruled out. The last one is some leaves are rats. So is there any common element between leaves and rats? Of course, yes. So therefore, the statement number 3 follows. So therefore, we can say statement 3 is definitely true. In this conclusion, only conclusion number 3 follows. The first and the second conclusion do not follow. Moving on. All stones are flowers. All flowers are cars. Some cars are trucks. Okay. First, let me draw the diagrams for all stones and flowers. All stones are flowers. This is stones and this is flowers. Then all flowers are cars. So stones is part of a bigger circle called flowers, and flowers is part of a bigger circle called cars. Now some cars are trucks. So only there is intersection between cars and trucks. So therefore this would be the ideal diagram for this. Now let us look at the conclusion. The first conclusion says some trucks are stones. Is there any common element between trucks and stones? Obviously there is no common element at all. So this is not following. Some cars are stones. Some cars are stones. Of course, yes, because this is the entire car and out of that we have some stones as well. Obviously, this is true. Some trucks are flowers. Because there is no intersection between flowers, which is here, and trucks, which is here. So therefore this statement is also not true in this case. So therefore only conclusions 2 holds good. Now let's move on to blood relations. Let us read the question first. Pointing to a photograph. Okay, there is a photograph here. Okay, a man said, I have no brother. I have no brother. And that man is the man who is in the photo. Okay, so this man, let's call him X. He says that X's father is my father's son. So that is the question here. Okay, so what we have done here is to make matters easy for us. We have named this person in the photograph as X. And this man who is making the statement, what is he saying? He is saying this fellow X's father, whoever it is my father's son. Who is this my father's son now? See, when you say, imagine you are making only this statement, my father's son. My father's son could mean two things. Either it's you or your brother. Isn't it? Who else can it be? So now in this case, brother is ruled out. Why is it ruled out? Because in the first part of the sentence itself, he says, I have no brother. So obviously he is referring to himself. So now, what is he saying? I have no brother and that man's father is my father's son. Meaning this X who is in this photograph, that man's father, X's father, let's call him Y, is my father's son. So let Y's father be Z and Z's son is only Y. And this Y is none other than the person who is actually making the statement. Once again, imagine you are Y and you are making this statement. I have no brother and that man's father, that is X's father, that is Y himself, is my father's son. Again Y himself. X's father, that is Y, is my father's son, which is also Y. So now whose photograph was it? Obviously it is X's. Who is X in relation to Y? X is none other than Y's son. I hope it is clear. Next. Pointing to a photograph of a man, a woman said, "He is the only son of the mother of my sister's brother." Okay, one thing which you have to notice in case of blood relations is you'll have to start from the last. That will be easy for you to break the statement into multiple parts. So now if I have to start from the last part here is my sister's brother. Let's imagine this woman is X. Okay, X has a sister Y and Y has a brother Z. If X is Y's sister and Y has a brother Z, X also has the same brother Z. That is easily solved. Now let us come to the previous part. Son of the mother of my sister's brother. Okay, so sister's brother's mother is X's mother. Okay, so they all have the same mother, let's say A. Now what is she saying? Now let us redefine her statement. She is saying this fellow, whoever is in the photo, okay, Z, is the only son of the mother of my sister's brother. Basically what she is saying is only son of A, who is in fact the mother of X, in fact the mother of X's sister Y, and also the mother of Y's brother Z, who is also brother of X. I hope there was no confusion. So basically this person who is in the photograph is the brother of this woman who is actually making this statement. Now let us look at the choices. What do we have? Father, maternal uncle, cousin. Obviously none of these options are right because the correct answer would have been brother. So therefore select the option none of these. In fact that is the right option. This is in fact the right option. Okay, moving on. Now we have moved on to a different area. This is decision making. This is in fact very easy. All that you have to do is just observe these rules. If you can follow those rules, then the decision making process will be really very easy. Okay, just keep this thing in mind. That's all. 1 to 7, those are the rules, and remembering those rules, we'll have to answer these questions. How many questions are there? Some 8 to 9 questions are there. Okay, let us start. The selection committee of a company laid down the following criteria of selection for the post of a manager. Okay, some accounts manager post, and this is happening some 20-30 years ago. This is happening some 25-30 years ago. So that's why the qualification is slightly outdated. Anyway, let's look at the conditions. The first condition says the candidate must be a postgraduate. Okay, PG. The candidate must have completed 21 years and should not be more than 35 years. So that fellow should be between 25 but less than or equal to 35 years. Greater than or equal to 21 and less than or equal to 35 years. As on which date? As on this date. If the candidate does not satisfy the criteria in one, that is, if he is not a postgraduate holder but has completed his chartered accountancy examination, he will be referred to Director of Finance. Okay, who can allow the candidate to appear in the interview if otherwise eligible. That is fine. He may not have done his PG, but he might have done something bigger, that is being a CA. So in that case, you forward that to or refer that to Director of Finance. He will take the decision whether to allow this candidate or not. Then, if the candidate fulfills all the criteria mentioned in 1 and 2 above, he or she will be called for the group discussion. So first, they should be within this age, then they should be postgraduate in commerce, and or they should be CA past candidates. If that is the case, then they will be called for the group discussion, GD. Then they say the candidate must get 50% marks to qualify in group discussion. So whatever is the allotted marks, out of that they should get 50%. That is also fine. Next, if the candidate qualifies in the group discussion, he or she will be called for the interview. That is the next process after GD. That is the interview process. That is also fine. The candidate must get 30% marks in the interview out of the 50. That means he should at least get 15 marks out of 50. 30% of 50 is 15, right? So at least this much he should get to finally get selected. Okay, maybe it's another short list or there will be one more round. So that's not of our concern, but these 7 conditions should be fulfilled. Now, based on these conditions, they have asked few questions. We'll have to be able to answer them. Of course, these are really very easy conditions we can easily answer. So as I said, this is part of the decision making process, which is also part of your syllabus. Now let us look at the first question. Mr. D'Souza, one of the candidates, who was born on 4/5/1965. That means he has completed 30 years. So obviously above 21, less than 35. So he's fulfilling second condition. Did MCOM fulfilling first condition as well? 1 year ago, he was the top candidate in the group discussion. If he is the top candidate, obviously, he has scored more than 50% marks in the group discussion. Okay, if he is the top candidate in the group discussion, obviously he should be forward, or rather he should be part of the next process, which is nothing but the interview. So what should we do? The candidate can be called for the interview. Okay, so now group discussion, he's the what is it, this top candidate, and so option D is the right answer. Next, Mr. Subramaniam, whose date of birth is 4/5/1965, again he has completed 30 years, is a postgraduate with commerce and has obtained 60 marks in the interview itself. Okay, 60% marks. So minimum percentage of marks required for the interview is 30% marks. But this fellow, if he has already appeared in the interview, that means he has already fulfilled the previous conditions. So the next thing which we have to do is we'll have to select him. Maybe there is one more round, but we can easily select option A here. We don't have to worry about anything else because he has already obtained 60 marks in interview process, which is in fact the last condition in our problem. So we need not even look at the other conditions. Next, question number 3. Mr. Roy is a commerce graduate and has passed the CA examination and was born on 18/4/1974. So in this case, he is not a commerce postgraduate student, by the way, remember. In this case, the first rule says he should be a PG in commerce. But he has cleared his CA. And he was born on 18/4/1974, and as on 31/7/1996, he would have crossed 21 years of age. So what we can do is, since he is not a postgraduate in commerce, we can refer him to Director Finance. So the answer in this case should be, he should be referred to the Director Finance. Next, Mr. Mathur is a PhD in commerce. Okay, this is indirect way of saying that he has already fulfilled the first qualification, meaning you can only do PhD if you are a PG holder in commerce. So obviously he has fulfilled that qualification, and 34 years old as on 1/3/1996. That means he has not crossed 35. That's fine. He obtained 14 marks in the interview. See, interview is for 50 marks. That is the last condition. And you should at least obtain 30%, which comes to 15 marks. But how much has he obtained? 14 marks. So this candidate cannot be selected. Okay. Next. Mr. Patel, a postgraduate, was permitted by Director of Finance. Okay. He was born on 30/5/1963. Obviously has completed 30 years and less than 35. He obtained 12 marks in the interview. Again, he cannot be selected because minimum is 15 marks. So option E is the right option here. Next, Mrs. Desai is a postgraduate in economics and her date of birth is 1965 or 3rd of April 1965. Once again, she cannot be selected. Why? For a simple reason that she is a postgraduate nevertheless, but not in commerce, but instead in economics. So therefore, we can safely rule her out. Option E will be the right option in this case. Next, Mr. Kant, a postgraduate with commerce, obtained 70% marks in group discussion, okay, and secured 20 marks in the interview. He was 35 years on 31/7/1996. So now let us go back to the condition and check as on which date they should be 35. They should be 35 as on 31/7/1996. Okay. He is exactly 35 years as on 31/7/1996. He has not crossed 35 years. So therefore, he qualifies when it comes to the age limit. And also 70% marks in group discussion. Okay. And 20% marks in interview. That is more than the required marks of 15. So therefore, this candidate can be selected. Option A is the right answer. Then question number 8. Miss Asha, a qualified CA, was 25 years old on 31/7/1987. Okay, she may be 25 years old. That means she is less than 35 now as on the date of interview. And since she is a CA and not a PG in commerce, what we have to do is we'll have to forward or refer that candidate to the director finance and he will take it forward. Next, Mr. Das is MCom and his date of birth is 36/1960. Okay. So which date are we supposed to be concerned with? In this case, 31/7/1996. Okay. 31/7/1996. Obviously, Mr. Das has crossed the age of 35, so he cannot be selected. So that's about logical reasoning video. I hope this was useful. As I said in the beginning of the video, I have just selected few topics from the huge list of topics which is prescribed by ICSI for CSEET logical reasoning topic. So if at all you have any doubts with regard to any of the questions which we solved in the class today, please leave a comment below so that I will try to clarify or answer that question. Thank you for watching the video.